Welcome back to The Narrative. Grenada's parliament has been debating the Age of Civil Legal Responsibility Amendment Bill, a proposal that has stirred controversy across legal and social landscapes. Supporters say it will strengthen accountability, but critics warn it could have serious consequences for children and families. One of the strongest voices of opposition is attorney Johanan Lafueille, who has been advocating against the bill in its present form. She's joining me at a time when Grenada has begun to observe Child Month, October, under the theme My Health, My Safety, Our Responsibility. She joins me now to talk about her concerns and outline possible alternatives to dealing with the crisis of child sexual abuse in Grenada. Welcome to the program, Attorney Lafueille.
Thank you for having me, Callistra.
You have been one of the most vocal voices, one of the most vocal persons on this in Grenada from the time that this bill was brought. I mean, I became aware of your advocacy when the bill was brought to Parliament for the first reading several weeks ago. Let's start with what your specific legal and constitutional grounds for opposing this bill of Age of Civil Legal Responsibility is. And in that, you will also sort of tell us some of the specifics of the bill, those troubling issues of the bill that you feel are against legal and constitutional rights.
Certainly. Initially, when I read the bill, I honestly could not believe that such a bill, so vague, so wide in its parameters and implications, would even reach the table. I'd never heard of the bill before, nor was I aware of any consultations to technically or basically shift the trajectory of what it means to grow up a child Grenadian and what it means to be raised a Grenadian. And just from a legal drafting perspective, so let's start there. A legal drafting perspective, the bill contains language that is not even legally defined. So language such as sexual and reproductive health treatment, it's a loose term, it's a loose phrase, and we're going to get to that. The other thing that was troubling about the bill, based on the education that state actors were pushing, is that inherent in the bill, in particular clause 3 sub 4A6, it protects any person that administers these treatments to minors. So immediately, critical thought, you put that against what a minor would have to, the hurdles a minor would have to jump over to obtain legal redress in instances where, for example, they receive some damage in the process. And so comparatively, when you look at the region, I do not know of another Caribbean island that has such dangerous legislation. And I call it dangerous because it's just that, and we're going to get to that. Who the bill purports to protect and who it's actually protecting. Comparatively, Guyana has gone a different route. Guyana has not left terms so loose and broad and vague, and potentially a piece of legislation that could actually be used to target and go after minors. Guyana has done what's called legislate the Gillick principle, which gives a medical practitioner, not just anybody, not the state, a medical practitioner, a guidelines by which to assess whether a minor is aware of the implications of the medical treatment that they are seeking.
Are you saying that the Gillick measurement is absent from this bill that we're seeking to pass, that says that children as young as 12 years old could be able to access health reproductive services without the intervention of parents?
Certainly. In fact, the bill goes way beyond Gillick. The bill purports to give a state actor in an attorney general after consultation with a minister of health, who most times don't even have a medical background, the ability or the power to make orders concerning minors is a blanket. This is not a case of a minor comes for a treatment and a medical practitioner, which is what Gillick is about, then assesses whether this minor is sufficiently mature to understand the implications of the medical treatment that they're seeking, medical sexual treatment that they're seeking. This is giving a state actor, like I stated, the blanket power to make decisions for every minor in every household, which suggests that there is statistics to show that the majority of Grenadian households either abuse minors sexually or expose minors to abuse. And I beg to differ. We have not seen that statistic.
We don't have statistic that says that it is happening in 95 or 98% of households, but we do have statistics that says that we have one of the highest rates of child sex offenses in the OECS. And certainly, let me just add here as well that you cannot pass. Can you pass a bill that says, okay, it is only even if that bill passes and it is implemented, it would only be enforced in those instances where such an issue arises. Not if it's not needed, it's not needed. So to say that it is to address every household, I'm a little bit confused about that.
Well, let me just start by saying an exception. We know the social ill. We know that there is close in age sexual activity. We know that there is incest happening. We know that there is abuse of minors happening. And that is not a basis to make a general rule, or perhaps even we look at it as creating a legal fiction that any minor can decide or has the mental capacity to make such sometimes very important decisions, because the menu of services includes surgical and other diagnostic procedures. And what I am saying is, for that very reason, the private consultant, Darshan Ramdani, King's Counsel, private consultant to the Spotlight Initiative, in his position papers never advocated or suggested that the age of legal civil responsibility needs to be reduced. In fact, quite the opposite. He suggests that the laws, the criminal laws, ought to be looked into and revised. We had an instance very recently where this current administration sought to increase very forcefully the consequences of gun-related crime. And I beg to say that sexual abuse of minors is tantamount, or if not worse than, gun-related crime. So that's one aspect. The second aspect that I want us to look into is that we have laws, we have arms like the Child Care Protection Board that we need to strengthen. So, for example, our dear Minister Andy can look into installing guidance counselors into the different schools, school nurses. We can look into legislating the Gillick principles that would give medical practitioners the tool that they need in odd cases where parents are really delinquent to treat with the matter. But to put a minors in a situation where the wording used in an act is so loose, notwithstanding any other law, that these minors can request any sexual treatment.
So that clause in the bill where it says just that, notwithstanding any other law. No, we have laws in this country that says abortion is illegal. Break it down for me as a legal expert. Notwithstanding, does that also mean that a 12-year-old now becomes exempt from those laws, which makes abortion illegal based on that clause there? Is that what it means? Or am I not understanding?
So let me start with defining who the law actually targets first. We're dealing with the 16-year-olds, the 16-year-old minors, and then the law says, after an order of a minister, in this case, the Attorney General, after consultation with the Minister of Health, that these, and the law is very clear, that these minors can access any. So rightfully speaking, as you outlined, it will include abortion. It would include sex changes. And you may say that this will never happen in Grenada, but we're talking about generations to come. The law is not just for this generation, it's for generations to come. It includes minors having access to IUDs, which means that they're more exposed to sexually transmitted diseases. So when we look at the social ill, the bill is very far away from what it says it wishes to cure. And I also want to note that the pedophiles, those that go after minors, actually somewhat have of a legal protection, because nothing in the bill stops a pedophile from saying to a minor, here's $2,500, go get an IUD. Nothing stops a pedophile from saying to a 16-year-old, here is $2,000, go and get an abortion. Now, when that 12-year-old or 16-year-old, that is 12-year-old in the case where an order is passed, goes to a medical practitioner for such services, the law then says your parents don't have to know. So it encourages secrecy. It makes the state somewhat of a surrogate parent. And I don't think that the state has the wherewithal, given the state of our healthcare services to begin. No minister of government has what it takes to make these decisions, just kicking away the social construct that has been here from time eternity to protect children. They've bypassed putting school nurses into schools. They've bypassed putting guidance counselors into schools and gone straight to allowing these medical practitioners to directly interface with minors without any frameworks. And some may ask, well, with the 16-year-old and whatever they are of age, let me just reflect some of the feedback that has been coming out from the doctors in the general service. And they're saying they're seeing complications even in 16-year-olds. The majority complications they're seeing is in these young people who are not properly formed as yet. And so they're saying, why not, in fact, increase the age to 18? Science and psychology has shown that a minor until age 20, it doesn't have the full mental capacity and development to make life-changing decisions. And I say, even as an adult, and the adults listening to me would attest that, even as an adult, man or woman, intercourse and intimacy with the right person or the wrong person could impact you for the rest of your life.
Are there any conditions under which a 12-year-old or 13-year-old can engage that process, the processes and the protocols provided for under the bill?
I want to go to section 3, sub 482, and I'm going to read it carefully concerning the 12-year-old. Notwithstanding any other law to the contrary, the minister may, that's the Minister, Legal Affairs, Attorney General, in consultation with the minister responsible for health, if he or she is satisfied that there is good cause to do so, by order published in the Gazette, provide that a minor, no, it is clear on what this order will provide. The law speaks to that a minor who has attained the age of 12 years, but not yet attained the age of 16 years, shall have the legal capacity to consent any, and I say ANY, any sexual or reproductive health treatments specified in that order, including diagnostic procedures, and his or her consent shall be as effective as if that minor was of full age. And there's a little parable that goes this way. If a man wishes to open the doors, first, he will come in very innocently. In this case, the innocence is, 16-year-olds already can be, consent to acts of gross indecency. And so it sounds a little palpable. And you would even dare think that our state actors will be conscionably enough to say, well, let us protect the minors, 12-year-old minors in a very more stringent way. But I want us to reflect that very recently, 2022, 2023 is very recent, when the new administration came in, there was an instance where an Ambassador Joseph signed on to something called the Samoa Agreement. Do you remember that, Callistra?
There was a huge outcry, and I think what came back was that, oops, we weren't supposed to sign it, and it was an error.
Certainly.
I did question how such an error could be made, but
I want to be very clear because you asked me a question and I want to answer you very clearly as to my confidence. And that Samoa agreement, I call it the Samoa Child Affairs Agreement, and I'll let you know why. It legally binds parties to implement what's called the comprehensive sexuality education. That's in the UNESCO's International Technical Guidance on Sexuality, which is based on WHO standards for sexuality education in Europe. And that agreement promises countries who signs billions of euros dollars to legalize this comprehensive sexuality education. But let me just give you a snapshot of what that looks like. 0 to 4, you have to introduce early childhood masturbation. 0 to 4. 4 to 9, introduce gender identities. So whereas in Grenada, we tell boys and girls to be confident in the bodies that they were born, this now is psychological warfare. It is ideological warfare, and a very good prime minister at the UN General Assembly recently, I think as recent as last week, the 80th session, indicated that classrooms should not be war zones. And I agree, and Grenadians agree. And so 0 to 4, early childhood masturbation. 4 to 9, introducing gender identities, encouraging if you're a boy, experiment with a boy, if you're a girl, experiment with a girl, and the like. And 9 to 12, now listen to the language, encourage your first sexual activity. 12 to 15, coming out, homosexuality. And so, to answer the question about my confidence as to whether any state actor, having signed the Samoa Child Affairs Agreement, and having signed on to legalizing comprehensive sexuality education, whether I have any confidence that one, they've exposed 16-year-olds in the way that they have, and radically advanced an education that was ingenuous. I have no confidence that we shall see any protections, as we hope, for minors younger than 16. And so I say to Grenadians, and I say emphatically, the scope of the bill is not even the problem. What is the problem is the very dark agenda, the very real agenda that is global, the psychological warfare that wants to come to the shores of Grenada. The bill is on Grenadian. And if the bill is passed, Grenada would officially move from pure Grenada to pedophile Grenada. And there will be no one in Grenada that will be able to say they didn't know, because I am saying it clearly. The language used is not defined in law. It is loose. It encourages secrecy. It exposes children to abusers. Minors aren't yet the age of majority. They cannot sign contracts except for contracts for sexual and reproductive medical treatment. Why are they so fascinated by our children and their sexuality and their bodies? Blanket disregard for parental rights. I encourage parents, do not give up your parental rights. Yet making the Attorney General the state mother. I want you to reflect on that. The state healthcare is already in shambles enough to try to convince us that the state could stand as a surrogate family, notwithstanding any law to the contrary. That is not to be ignored. You don't sit and tell us that abortion is illegal and you have such language in the legislation. What I am concerned about is that the good Prime Minister indicated that he was not aware that Ambassador Joseph signed the Samoa Agreement, and we want to know what plans do the government have to remove our signature from such a dehumanizing and dangerous agreement? What is the plan? The Prime Minister also came out to say that he did not read the bill before it went to Parliament. He said he didn't see the bill.
Well, I did not hear him say this.
You're saying it is concerning for such devastating, destructive agreements and bills to be going forward with such dark agendas. And the person that we have at the helm it appears not to be aware that these instruments are being signed and that these bills are being advanced. Then we want to know what is the investigative processes that will follow to see who drafted this bill, which drafter within the AG's chambers drafted the bill, who was responsible, What informed them? How did this bill reach to the parliament's table? Why weren't the people consulted, as KC Dashan Ramdani strongly suggested and advised? Why wasn't the church and other faith-based organizations consulted? Is it that the views of Grenada and the values that Grenadians hold to concerning child rearing and protecting children, is it that it has become old-timeish? Is it that Grenadians have become so debased as parents that we need to be schooled by the state? We beg to differ. We beg to differ. And we ask the state. I am not sure which the echo chamber is happening around our good prime minister. I respect him highly. We're friendly with each other where we see each other. I never thought the day would reach when I, Johanan, would have to sit to defend the family, to defend common sense, to say out loud, no, this is un-Grenadian, this is foreign, this is warfare in our classrooms, and we reject it as a people. I am saying this to the state clearly. There is no road, there is no project, there is no pension you can pay, there is no wage increase that you can give, there is no project that you can implement that is equal to the value that parents put on their children. Grenadian parents value their children very highly. And you ought to respect the rights of Grenadian parents, and you ought to respect the rights of the
But
children.
that there are some parents who do not love, respect, or care about their children and would pretend that their boyfriend, the stepfather, or the father did not give their child an STD or get them pregnant or something like that. And they would argue that it is for these parents that they are taking this route. Do you believe the bill does not have sufficient clarity and safeguards that allows it to focus in on those particular problems? And if you think not, what really should the state be doing to address this very real problem that we have of mothers collecting monies under the table when their children get pregnant or when their children get abused, pretending their children don't have an STD, throwing them out of the house in favor of the boyfriend who is helping them buy their weave or put on their ridiculous nails?
And
Where do we
for
go?
that very reason, certainly for that very reason, I say we ought not to erase the social net that is there. If anything, we ought to strengthen it. And I would direct the state back to the position papers of the good Darshan Ramdani King's Council, and he recommended some very clear things that could be done, including revising the criminal law books concerning the teeth, giving it teeth. Right now, the Grenada's laws concerning the sexual abuse of minors is like a slap to the wrist. Sometimes they pay as little as $1,500 fee, very low reprimand terms, etc. The other thing that I want to note, if a parent is pretending that something isn't happening, then why, or preventing the state, as the DPP came out to say, preventing the state, especially mothers, preventing the state from doing its job, then arrest the mother and deal with the mother.
Why are there no laws or no recourse, no room for that mother to be arrested, charged, tried,
Certainly,
and
and then
if found
further,
guilty,
because I
tossed
want
into
to
prison?
answer, certainly, I want to answer the question you asked. The recourse for that child, then comes the neighbors, then come persons around, then come the child. It's the child itself. The government informed us of its intention to increase mandatory age of education to 18. So let's assume every child, every minor will have access to an institution outside the home. No, you have the school nurses stationed there. You have the guidance counselor stationed there. You have teachers who are attuned to things. Teachers are like second parents. You have the principal who is aware. You have persons in the corner shop that know what's going on. And now you encourage that framework. You strengthen that framework. Put school nurses in every school. I am sure the Grenadian people will have a lot to say, which is what Darshan Ramdani encouraged, to consult with faith-based organizations, and that was not done. In fact, when the stir just happened, the Attorney General Claudette Joseph came out to say that she was a part of these widespread consultations. She indicated that she went to a certain hotel to even consult when the former administration was there. She gave the impression that the bill came out of the efforts of the former administration. But then on the Kellen Bob show, she had to indicate and be truthful that the bill never formed part of the Spotlight Initiative, that it was under the current administration that the bill was drafted from scratch. So how could you hop over all of the recommendations made by the private consultant for Spotlight Initiative, recommendations such as Romeo clauses within the criminal law, so same in age sexual intercourse, like 2 to 3 years apart, so that they wouldn't be criminalized? Where are the clauses that were presented so clearly? You hop over all that to come with a bill that is so foreign and so far from what you say is a social ill you want to cure.
But this particular piece of legislation, what is their reason, apart from what they're saying publicly, that you feel you can say, this is where it's going, this is what the end game is? We talked about Samoa, we talked about international funding that may be attached to signing on to certain agreements. But with this particular legislation, what does the government want with this? Because it doesn't.
And this is a very good question, Kalistra. I think you hit the nail on the head with that question, because, and I'd bring the question even further. Why was the bill advanced when Grenadians were busy in revelry, preparation for Carnival? What was the urgency that the bill came under such stealth in such a moment in time when people are more relaxed and not really caring what's happening in Parliament? And I think that that's a question for the state to answer. I want to know who promised who what. I want to know whose agenda is being advanced here, because it certainly is not the agenda of Grenadians. I want to ask, why weren't faith-based organizations consulted? Why wasn't civil society consulted? And I want to ask further, why is the Honorable Gloria, I'm not recalling her last name right now, but why is she not giving us a list of dates and times for the public consultation? Because the Attorney General has given all indication, as I understand, that this bill shall be tabled. And that is the only reason we continue our efforts. Because if when the bill came to the intellectuals, the intelligentsia, they pushed back. Lawyers that have worked many years in childcare gave their reasoning, asked for the bill to be stayed. The president of the Bar Association wrote letters, others wrote letters, the priest preached about it first, and they still had the audacity to go to the people's table and read the bill. That is when I decided that no, they would go forward with this if this is not all. So we don't push back from the inside. So I prefer for them to have to go to tell whoever they promised, whoever agenda is being pushed here, hey, we can't do this.
So how aware do you think the public, the Grenadian public is, and how do the level of grasp that they have on this, of the implications of this bill, and what conversations should be happening?
Honestly, I am pleasantly taken by surprise when I go to the highways and the byways, that Grenadians are coming to me to say, excuse me, please, miss, excuse me, please. One guy even came to me, he said, I support the government, but the bill, not bad, the bill do good. So the grassroots are getting the message. What I also recognized, however, and it was a sort of heartbreaking, notwithstanding the efforts of the Honorable Leader of Her Majesty's Opposition, Honorable Emmeline Pierce, the efforts to host public consultations. So the biggest consultations that have happened to date has been under the auspices of her office. I'm recognizing something. Even if Grenadians, right, and poor people were to say, wow, this bill not good, I do not have any confidence that is sufficient for the current administration to really understand that Grenadians are serious. And so we have plans. You may see public protests. The churches are still drafting some write-ups. The churches are still making some plans. Civil society continues to be on it. And so this is not the end all of the efforts that you will see over the next few weeks, especially Grenada being Child Month. And I continued my own advocacy, but now I even encourage, from my experience, what I see, the only thing that will make Grenada's government take us serious is if they lose the political will. So I encourage, let October Child Month be a month of record registration of voters.
What you're saying to me here, that you will lead a movement, no pun intended, to seek to remove this government from power at the next general elections, should they proceed with this bill in its current form?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not even seeking to seeking to make any movement.
Because you spoke of taking away their political will, and
that is the only way the political will could be taken out. If they know, listen, we do not know, but the chances are only Andy could win his seat next election. I think that's sufficient for them to sit back and say, you know what, let us listen to the people. Because so far, it doesn't seem like we are being listened to. We have not heard an official statement coming out to say, as you listen to the debate happening between Darshan Ramdani, myself, and the head of Spotlight, all of us agree that the bill is not good. It needs either revision or something, but it's not in its current form. Everybody conceded. We have not had any statement from the state. We only have had the sugar water, the sugar coating education being pushed. So I am saying, if it comes to that, because there is no, listen, we know we're still in the romance phase, the honeymoon phase, and the doing thing, the prime minister.
I do believe the honeymoon phase, based on my intel on the ground, the honeymoon phase is over.
But I'm saying, it's not that we want to remove anything. We're saying, don't bring that agenda, the dark agenda. Right now, it's a choice between good and evil, and you can't
you're standing in the middle, and you're standing in the middle saying, don't go there.
No, I'm not standing in the middle. I'm standing on the right of good and common sense and saying Grenadians don't want this. I cannot tell you the number of persons in the current government, the number of persons who are NDCites, the number of persons they can't speak, right? Because, we are a small society, who have come secretly to me to say, where I stand, I can't really say anything, but continue.
But that right there speaks to the fundamental problem with our society, that we are looking at a bill and we feel that it's not good. We feel that it can undermine the family. But because we need to protect our own interests, we will not speak. And that there sums up the problem of Grenada and why we are where we are, and where the government feels it can push a bill like that and get away with it. But we are out of time, and I want to ask you one final question. My health, my safety, our responsibility, Child Month's theme. Do you believe that it sounds a little bit as if it's being used as...
Listen, when I saw that theme, my health, our responsibility, I honestly, because of what transpired over the last few weeks, I put my eyebrows up. And I'm saying, I believe that it is indicative that the current administration really has lost its fingers on the pulse. If I would not have advised them to come out with that theme after that friction, after that kickback, after that upset and frustration that has not yet been addressed, that is a very bold move. Because right now, in that, the state has a responsibility to enforce some more comprehensive sexuality education. I wrote to my children's school, well, not officially, but to a teacher within one of my son's classrooms to say, hey, given the current bill that just came to the table, I just want to be sure that no comprehensive sexuality education aspect that is so dehumanizing and debased will ever come to my child in this Child Month. And so I am encouraging parents as well, get on your PTAs, ask what is being taught this month. What is being told to our children, right? I think children across the board had enough about safe touch, bad touch, good touch. They know that we teach that all through the year. So what is the agenda here our responsibility. Whose responsibility is children's care?
Well,
And
certainly,
so,
certainly we are out of time, so we have to stop here. But I
thank
just
you.
want to say that I have also issued that bit of warning at my son's school, that we do not subscribe to that part of the curriculum if it does become part of the curriculum, which it was
Jamaica,
becoming
what
part of.
Jamaica did,
So
Callistra, Jamaica actually rewrote the entire comprehensive sex ed syllabus. And I think that Grenada has enough intelligent people to do something so that it's ours, not theirs.
not less. So I want to thank you so much for joining me on The Narrative. We will continue to engage you here on the program. This matter is far from over. The government intending to table this bill in Parliament with or without changes to the current draft bill. We do not yet know, but certainly the feeling is, and the perception is that they will. So we will continue to engage you. Johanan
Certainly. It was good to be here.
thank you so much for being on the
You're
program.
welcome, Callistra. Thank
All
you.
right. This is The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Faria. When we come back, more from me.
Show the best way I like.